Hello and welcome to the Schola Progenium. So today, guys, I'm going to be talking to you about an interesting topic, which is the new Chaos Knights. And I'm going to be taking you through two lists that I've written, one for the Iconoclast Knights and one for the Infernal Knights. There's two households, as many of you may be aware, for the Knights factions, the Chaos Knights. So instead of having loads of sub-households, they just have these two overarching sort of broader households, much like Imperium and Mechanicus for Imperial Knights. And one is the Iconoclast, and one is the Infernal. And as you would expect, they share some, they each have sort of unique army-wide abilities, and they also have unique stratagems and relics available to each household. So there's a few things that you can do. And with the Chaos Knights, it looks really interesting because it looks like you've got a lot of variety and a lot of flexibility in your knights. You really can. One of their strengths, I'm not sure yet if they look as strong as the Imperial Knights, but one of their strengths is certainly the fact that you've got a lot of flexibility. And with these two households, you really can customize your army to make it work in a certain way, which should hopefully give some advantage to Chaos Knights when they're on the battlefield. Not only are they obviously a knight army, which is going to be really powerful as it is, but if you're not entirely sure what you're going to be facing, then or you're facing a setup of Chaos Knights that you've not faced before, you may not be able to deal with them. So it looks quite interesting, looks quite fun, and also it looks like the Chaos Knights will stay quite fresh. Hopefully, won't get boring just using the same loadouts and the best optimal loadouts again. Again, a lot of experimentation to be had, and I'm looking forward to doing that and developing some tactics for them and getting some videos on the channel about Chaos Knights. But don't worry, I am not a traitor to the Imperium by any means. I know in my heart that I am still a loyal Imperial servant, a servant of the glorious Emperor. I may just have been slightly radicalized, but some people, they just don't get it. They just don't get it, right? It's a crazy universe out there, crazy galaxy. The terrors are, untold and unfathomable. And sometimes, you've got to fight fire with fire. So, don't question my loyalty to the Emperor. I think I've proven that enough, have I not? I just think that maybe using these Chaos Knights might help the Imperium in the long run. So I don't know if you bought that, but that's the line that I'm going to be telling to the Inquisition. Really hope I don't get executed. So without much further ado, let's get on with the lists. So the first list that I'm going to take you through is the Iconoclast list. Now, this Iconoclast list, because it's got 4 super heavies in it, and they're all big ones, it counts as 6 command points, plus the 3 that I get for being Battleforged, so it would be 9. However, I spend 2 on vows, which are like unique stratagems that the Iconoclast lists can use before the start of the game, and I also have spent 1 on an extra relic, so I'll be hitting the battlefield, hitting the tabletop with 6 CP, which I believe is enough to get me through the first couple of turns and hopefully get me that initial advantage, and then I don't need the CP and I can fly blind and still win the game. But, we'll see. It's always good to have a lot of CP, as we all know. Now, the Iconoclast household ambition is called Conquerors Without Mercy, and it means that if a model in this faction is charged, or it does a charge, or it makes a heroic intervention, it gains an extra attack. So obviously that means 3 extra attacks with Titanic Feet. And it also improves the AP of its melee weapons, all of them, by -1, which means those Titanic Feet stomping around will be AP -3. And your standard knight will be putting out 15 attacks. So that's like a squad of veterans just coming in and deep striking in and just spraying off around the plasma. It's like Scions. It's that kind of firepower. It can delete units. It's really, really powerful. So, really, really nice ability. And it can be used to either really ramp up a close combat knight list, or, as I've used it in this case, make a shooty, dangerous, in-your-face Daka Knight list. Also really, really brutal in close combat. So if people are trying to charge them, it's a much bigger risk because they could just get flattened. So it sort of protects them, because one of Knight's biggest weaknesses is in close combat, as we all know. So having that extra damage capability in close combat means it just is going to pay the enemy are going to have to pay a higher price to take you on in close combat, which is going to play into our hands. So as you can see, I've gone for a Tyrant Valiant. I've gone for a Stacker Knight with twin Avenger Gatling cannons. I've gone for a twin Fusion Knight, which is a crazy good knight that I'll go into in a second when I get to it. Then I've gone for what I refer to as a combo platter, which is when you've got the Rapid Fire Battle Cannon on one arm and the Avenger Gatling Cannon on the other arm. So what I'll do now is I'll go into each knight in detail, what relics, stratagems, vows, etc. I'm going to use with them, and why, what my thoughts are behind each decision. So starting off, we've got the Tyrant Valiant. So this guy obviously comes with Thunder Coil Harpoon and the Conflagration Cannon, which are weapons that I'm sure we're all familiar with, but in case you're not, Thunder Coil Harpoon fires one shot per turn. It can reroll against vehicles and monsters, and it's strength 16, so it wounds anything up to toughness 8 on a 2. I think it's AP minus 4 or 5, so it just punches straight through armor. And it does 10 damage flat plus D3 mortal wounds, or an additional D3 damage. I'm pretty sure it's mortal wounds. So it's a big gun. If you've got if it bounces off an invuln save, then it does nothing. But if the enemy fails that invuln save, it can flatten any tank, pretty much that you're going to face with one hit. And against enemy knights, it's taking down half their wounds with one hit, so it's really nice. When paired with the Conflagration Cannon, that gets those auto hits. He is still a relatively reliable unit. Now, I think the Valiant, in my personal opinion, really comes into its own in the Chaos Knight Codex, and that's because of some of he ties in nicely with the household abilities, both of them beautifully, which you'll see in a second. But also just the stratagems that can be spent on him and the relics that can be given. It just works with the Valiant, and I think that this is going to be a really nice sort of unit that I'm going to be using a lot, I expect. So first things first, what I've done with him is I've given him the vow of the Beast Slayer. Now, I know there's other vows out there that look more popular, like making it so that he can only be wounded on 4s, 5s, or 6s, or that every 10 models that he kills gives him an extra attack in close combat. But personally, I think, he's already got that damage in close combat. He's already going to be putting out 15 attacks at AP minus 3 in close combat, multi-damage, flattening units. So I think the Vow of the Beast Slayer actually ties in beautifully with the Valiant, because what it does is it gives you reroll wounds of 1 against models with 8+ wounds, and this guy loves attacking models with 8+ wounds. Now it says units with a model containing 8 or more wounds, just to be specific. So I don't believe you'll be able to reroll ones against model units that have, say, 10 guys in it, 10 individual infantry. I think it's only big units that this counts for. But still, with that harpoon, it takes it from an unreliable to sort of semi-reliable, nice when it goes off weapon, to actually a reliable damage dealer that if you target it the right kind of unit and try and dodge invuln saves when you can, it's going to do some crazy damage, because now not only are you rerolling all hits against vehicles, which means that you're likely to hit most of the time, but also you're going to reroll wounds of 1 now, because it's strength 16. It's going to be wounding most vehicles on a 2. 99.9% of the time, it's going to be re-rolling ones. It's going to be re-rolling all wounds. So effectively, you're re-rolling hits, re-rolling all wounds. If they haven't got an invuln save, that means you are almost definitely, at least for a couple of turns whilst this guy's alive, because he's going to take a lot of fire, he's going to pop a vehicle with that harpoon and just flatten it. Reel that harpoon back in with that big chain, fire it out again, and flatten another vehicle. It is going to be epic. So I see that Vow of the Beast Slayer for just 1 CP makes this guy super reliable. And it also means, don't forget that Conflagration Cannon, it's strength 7, it's really nice against rhinos, razorbacks, predators, loads of vehicles that are strength 7, and vehicles that are, lower than that, strength 6, Elder Skimmers, Elder Flyers, it auto hits as they skim over, and if they're in range, he's in range, because, Eldar Flyers have to be within 18 inches to fire their most effective weapons, and he's got a range also hitting of the conflagration cannon. Now rerolling those ones, and with him being strength 7 means he's going to be winning on 3s, rerolling ones. He's going to be torching things out of the sky. He's going to be flattening vehicles with his flamer. He's going to be absolutely tearing stuff apart for just 1 CP with that Vow of the Beastslayer. So that's why I've gone down that route. Obviously, if it doesn't work out, I'll mix it around, but this is the first list I've come up with. So I think that's, a sleeper unit that could be really effective. Now, I've also made him the Dreadblade. Now, with the Chaos Knights, you don't have to roll at the beginning of the game or select at the beginning of the game for your buffs and debuffs. So, as they're known, they're pacts with the Dark Gods and their damnations that they've received from the Dark Gods. So, you don't have to actually implement them. So this gives a little bit of an interesting combination, because what it means is you can have the advantages of the Dreadblade, which means you can give him a certain relic known as the Rune of Naktagra, but you don't actually have to take the negative effects. You just get the effects of the Rune of Naktagra. So, you're not getting necessarily loads of disadvantages and loads of advantages. You can take them if you want, but you don't have to. So it depends. It gives you loads of flexibility. You can get up to potentially 3 benefits on this guy, and potentially 3 disadvantages as well if you wanted to, or a variety in between if you select one, or if you just select, because the relic Rune of Naktagra allows you to select an additional pact and damnation, but it also gives you a 5+ invuln in shooting and close combat. So this guy, potentially is going to be facing down slam captains with Wings of Sanguinius. That's a really popular unit. I love using him, and I know he's really popular in soup lists out there because he can ignore Overwatch, and this guy auto hits on Overwatch. He absolutely flattens things on Overwatch. So those slam captains are going to be coming for this guy. So having that 5+ invuln in close combat should be really useful. Just hopefully keeping me alive, stopping a third of those attacks going through, successful attacks going through. So fingers crossed that keeps him alive. And if that guy fails his charge, anyone else who wants to charge him, they're just going to, if they fail, then even with the reroll with Wings of Sanguinius on their Smash Captain, which I know can happen, then they're not going to want to charge anyone else in, because he's got that conflagration cannon re-rolling ones to wound against big vehicles and that kind of thing, and just generally being dangerous against other slam captains if they've got multiple combat units coming towards you. So all in all, he's a nasty target. You're going to think twice about charging him, and if you do get in, you're not necessarily going to do all the damage you would normally do to a knight in close combat with those anti-knight combat hunting and combat units that are sort of there for knight hunting. And against other knights, having that 5+ invuln in close combat should hopefully just give him the edge. Remember, he's got an extra attack, and he's got AP -3. So, all in all, hopefully he should be really resilient. He's got the invulns, and he also, for the Rune of Naktagra, I've chosen one pact and one damnation, because it allows you to select just one, which is better than selecting one but having to have 2 damnations. So it's a much better way of taking the Dreadblade. So I've taken the galvanized hull, which means that AP -1 doesn't apply to this guy. Now, in the current meta, AP -1 is having a big comeback, and lower AP weapons having a big comeback, because now there's such a prevalence of invuln saves in the meta, especially at a competitive level, but also just in friendly garage and basement games and down the club. Everyone's onto the invulns. Everyone's packing the invulns in these days. You just got to do it. That's the name of the game in 8th edition at the moment. So that galvanized hull means that all those weapons that people are taking that are AP -1, they're just there to trim a bit of armor off, but don't waste points on having AP ability that's going to be wasted against invuln saves. They're not going to apply to this guy, which just means that much more saves will be on a 3+, and he can't just be plinked away with some spare heavy bolters or something like that. Shot at with an assault cannon or something like that. He's just going to have a bit of an advantage. So all in all, he's just got these extra little advantages. AP -1 doesn't apply, 5+ in close combat. He's got his conflagration cannon, which makes it hard to charge him. All these things just help to make him just this nasty, big, dangerous unit that can put out firepower. He can destroy things, and he's you have to think twice about how you're going to take him on, how you're going to approach this guy. Now, he also has the Warp Fugue. Now, really ummed and armed about what damnation to take, and loads of them I sort of thought, this one looks good, actually, no, it looks really bad, that kind of thing. And I thought, in the end, this guy, the best one for him is always fights last in close combat Warp Fugue, because I figured when I'm charging stuff, I can just make sure that I'm charging things like elite infantry or general infantry or tanks, stuff where I'm going to kick them to death very easily in my round of combat. And I don't mind striking you first, and most are going to do me a wound if that, they've got low attack output, potentially if it's a vehicle or something like that. And I've got my 5 up in close combat. And if they're charging me, then they're going to be striking first anyway. It just means I can't interrupt, but if they attack with more than one slam captain at once, let's say, at the end of the day, I've only got 6 CP. I may want to save that anyway. I may not want to interrupt. So therefore, and it sort of stops me from being tempted to interrupt. So in a way, I don't see it as a disadvantage. If he's going to get slam captain to death, he's going to get slam captain to death. Hopefully he blows up. Hopefully he takes them down. Hopefully one of them gets conflagrations, and hopefully really they fail, and then I get to kick one of them to death in close combat because that 5 up info. So I'm really hoping that that is a nice combination of relics and a vow and using an interesting unit which is considered not particularly competitive, but I really think this guy could have a competitive edge in the current meta. And that overall, this guy's cost me 1 CP for my vow of the Beast Slayer, and he's taken obviously just a relic that he can have. Now, the one last thing I'll say about this guy is just more of a fluff, a head fluff sort of idea, which is I've gone with this guy as the Dreadblade, because he doesn't fit in with the colour scheme necessarily. He is one of my Imperial Knights. So I'm sort of thinking to myself, he's maybe a knight that's recently fallen to Chaos. He's maybe struck out on his own as a free blade, and on his adventures ended up falling to Chaos. And so his advantage is, he's got some strength and some power from Chaos. That's his pact, obviously. That's what everyone gets into Chaos for, the pacts. But he's still hesitant. He still sort of sometimes hesitates and can't pull the trigger against Imperial units. So sometimes, when he's just about to bring his foot down and stomp an Imperial tank to death, he sort of maybe has a flashback to his life back home, or, better times, back on the agri-feudal world where he grew up or something like that. And, all in all, I'm really happy with this unit selection. So that is my Knight Valiant. So next, I'll take you on to the Daka Knight. Now, this is the guy that everyone's excited about. He's got 2, Gatling cannons, Avenger Gatling cannons, and he is putting out 24 strength 6 shots, AP minus 2 damage. So he's really tearing stuff up. And what this means is that he can, kill a lot of stuff and hopefully kill more than 10 models in a turn, which brings me on to the second vow that I've taken. So you can only take one of these vows each, mutually exclusive, per night. You can't take multiple vows, but I believe you could take more than one of the same vows. You could have loads of beast slayers. You could have a hunting pack of knights that were all out there hunting beasts, hunting demons of the war. Maybe that's how they fall into Chaos. They just want to kill those big beasts, and where's the best place to find them? Demon World. So that's where they're going to go. And, ultimately they've fallen to Chaos and become infested with Chaos, and they don't even realise it. Maybe that's what's happened to me. Who knows? So, this guy has the Vow of Carnage, which means when he kills 10 models, he goes up by 1 attack. And that is for the rest of the game. So if he sprays down a unit of OBSEC and kills them off with his Gatling cannons, or kills off any 10 models, 2 elite units, 5 men each, it doesn't matter, he'll get an extra attack. You can then charge him with that extra attack, and he's putting out 6 attacks at this point because he's got an extra attack. Generally when he's charged or heroically intervenes in the first round of combat, essentially, and then +1 because he's killed something. So he's already putting out 18 attacks at AP minus 3. This guy is going to kick stuff to death. He's going to tear through units. It's going to be absolutely horrendous. Let's say charges into another infantry unit. So your opponent's got a screen of infantry, but the more you think about it, every unit that he kills, you can easily wipe out 20 models in a turn, maybe 10 in close combat, 10 in shooting very reliably. Then he's on an extra 2 attacks, which equates to an extra 6 stomps. can do that again. This time killing more guys in close combat. So the second turn that he's in close combat, second turn that he charges, he could, after having another round of shooting, he could very well accumulate an extra attack in his first shooting phase, an extra attack in his first combat phase, an extra attack in his second shooting phase, potentially 2 extra attacks in his second combat phase. And that is on top of your existing 12 attacks. You're looking at 27 attacks if you can keep this guy alive. He is going to be ripping stuff apart. So obviously, your Tyrant is going to be charging into tanks, where it doesn't matter if he gets struck last. Whereas this guy, he can be striking into big blobs, tearing them down. He's hunting down infantry, and he is going to be tearing apart hordes for you. So you've got your Tyrant ripping apart multiple tanks in one round in every turn, and you've got your Dakar Knight ripping apart the infantry. Now, it is really tempting to take Valve the Beast Slayer on this guy as well. Rerolling wounds of 1 against models with 8 or more wounds would be situational, but quite commonly situational. If you lost your Tyrant early on, your opponent thinks that blooming Tyrant has got to go. Manages to get the 28 wounds through on him because he's only got 5 up infant save against shooting, and they managed to shoot him down. Then this guy, if you have the Vow of the Beast Slayer, which you can't take both, so you would take the other one instead. They've got a lot of vehicles, and in ITC you can pick your stratagems. Like I think in Big Book, in ETC, in Rules as Written, and in ITC, you can pick these files before the game starts, so it allows you to customize. And if they've got a lot of armor and not many infantry, so you're not going to be killing all that infantry is tied up, is hidden in vehicles and that kind of thing. You're not going to need the Vow of Carnage. So instead, we take the Vow of the Beast Slayer, because that means this guy really is able to just hose down vehicles. We already know from the Imperium Knights that having multiple Avenger Gatling cannons is useful in all situations, because you can just hose down vehicles with multiple shots. You hose down enemy knights with multiple shots because you're taking them. You're taking down their armor, and if they've got a good infant, it doesn't matter. But with the Vow of the Beast Slayer, those multi-shots, because they're only strength 6, you'll be failing with a lot. And hopefully you'll be getting a couple of 1s, and then you'll get to re-roll those. So it just makes you more reliable at taking on vehicles. So you get the idea. This guy, you take him, and before the game starts, you think, right, what vow is he going to take? Vow of Carnage or Vow of Beast Slayer? Am I going to be taking on a Horde? Am I going to be taking on Mech or Knights? What is it? What vow do I need to take? And then you either make this guy super insane, tear units apart, trimming the fat off their army so that you can take board control, or you make him so that he's just reliable anti-armor. Then you spend an additional CP on this guy to go and take an extra relic. And what I've done there is I've given this guy the 4-up invuln against shooting. So only Iconoclast can take this. This is the unique ability, the unique relic for Iconoclast List, and it is the 4-up invuln against shooting. Now, the unique relic is great, but you can only get this once, and you can only get it for Iconoclast, so it's a big boon to the Iconoclast household, essentially, because it's really useful in Knights. We all know it, and I think it'll be a shock to the system for Knight players to go back to having a 5-up invuln. I can't remember really the last time I rolled a 5-up invuln on one of my Knights, because I always have a 4-up invuln Warlord trait on my Dominus Knight, and I always spend the command points to give a 4-up Rotate Iron Shield on my normal Knights, and if I have to, I'll spend it on a Dominus as well to get my other Dominus if I take a double Dominus list onto a 4-up. So, having that 5-up, you're going to feel it as a Knight player. If you're switching over, falling to the Dark Gods, or if you're starting a Knight's list, you are really going to feel that 5-up. And if you're facing against Chaos Knights, it's going to be a breath of fresh air, because you are going to really notice the difference. Your firepower is going to be that much more effective, because most of them will only have that 5-up invuln save. It's a big deal, really big deal. So this guy's got the 4-up invuln because he's going to be taking a lot of shooting. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, why didn't you make this guy the Dreadblade and give him the 5-up in shooting and 5-up in close combat? It's because my Tyrant's going to be right in there. And yeah, okay, so this guy might actually be more tempting for Slam Captain, so I might want to give this guy the 5-up Infern, because they might not want to charge the Conflagration Cannon on the Tyrant. But my reasoning is, if they've got a Slam Captain, they're going to have Wings of Sanguinius. They're going to ignore my Overwatch if they're targeting one of these units, if they're trying to decide. So they'll go against the Conflagration Cannon with the guy who has the Wings of Sanguinius, and inevitably he'll be more powerful in close combat, so I need that 5-up Infern in close combat. And secondly, it's for the fluff, and this was the main reason, because of the paint job, because this guy's yellow and he looks like he's only just fallen to Chaos, his armor is not as gritty, the paint job isn't as dark, I felt like that guy, the Tyrant, had to be the free blade, so therefore the darker guy is not the free blade. I gave him the relic, that gives him the 4-up Infern, but it was a toss-up between the two of them. So finally, I have 2 units to talk about, and that'll go over a lot quicker, because these guys don't have any relics, they don't have any valves, they're just straight up units. Now the Twin Fusion guy, I really like. Now I've gone Twin Fusion, and he is actually only 10 points more than the Rampager. So it may be a slight misconception that the close combat Chaos Knight is cheaper, because you've got 2 Night Hulls. You've got I think it's a Destroyer or something like that, Despoiler, and you've got the Rampager. And the Despoiler or / Destroyer or whatever it's called is the guy that starts off with 2 close combats, but he can be given any combination of shooting weapons that you choose, and that's what my Daka Knight and my Twin Fusion Knight are. I say Twin Fusion because he's kind of like a Tau Commander in the way he behaves, but actually I mean, Twin Thermal Cannon. Now, those knights are cheaper, but they get less attacks. The Knight Rampager does not have the ability to take shooting weapons. He can only take close combat weapons, and that includes taking a carapace weapon. So if you take one of them, he cannot take, say, an Ironstorm rocket pod to shoot against units that are out of line of sight. But he does get an extra attack in close combat, and I think he strikes at +1, so he's hitting on 2s as well. So the Rampager, you are paying more points, significantly more points for that hull, and he has less flexibility, but he's hitting on 2s, and he's got an extra attack, so he's going to be tearing stuff apart. And with this, with the Iconoclast, that means 2 extra attacks if he's charged, or he charged himself, etc., etc. So that means that he will be starting the game with 6 attacks, which means 18 AP -3 attacks in close combat. So he is absolutely brutal. But I haven't gone for him, because for just 10 points more than him, you can take, because he's slightly more expensive than taking a normal knight with fist and chainsword. If you swap out the fist and chainsword on another knight, for just 10 more points, you can get double thermal cannon. Now, double thermal cannon, most of the time, when you're in close combat with these knights, you are going to be striking with your feet. You're going to be stomping away, which means that you don't really need, most of the time, especially in this list with my Tyrant and my anti-tank capabilities already that I have in the list. I don't need that close combat capability. I've got it in droves already. But having that Twin Fusion means this guy's just acting in more than one phase of the game. He's acting in the shooting phase, and he's got Twin Fusion. That's only cost me 104 points for both of those weapons, I think, all in all. And he is just going to pop 2 fusions, add a vehicle. On average, that's 7 shots, 2d6. He's hitting on 3s, so he should hopefully get 4 shots through. And, that can kill a lot of tanks, especially if they don't have an infant save. And armies that do have infant saves, maybe let's say you're shooting at Custodes Bikers. Yeah, they've got that 4-up infant save, but they're going to fail maybe 2 wounds there. And that means, your D6 damage, you'll probably kill 2 Bikers with this guy and then charge in and, kick them up. And, they'll strike you back. But hell, you could kill a lot of Bikers with this guy. This guy's going to be really good in the meta. He's super fast. He can run around 12 inches. He can just open up a tank, open up a transport very reliably and charge the contents inside. And that's what I see this guy doing. I see him hunting down transports, fusioning them open, and then running in. And with his extra attack in close combat when he charges, and the AP -3 attacks, even if that's a unit of Space Marines, even if it's 10 Space Marines in there, inside a Rhino, I'm going to charge in, I'm going to run up, fusion open the Rhino and kick to death the 10 guys inside reliably. That's not going to be a problem. So this guy's going to be an absolute nightmare, and he is so cheap, absolutely so cheap. And again, that advantage, that flexibility, the Rampager wouldn't be able to do that. He'd have to run up and hope that the shooting from another knight opened up the vehicle so he can charge the juicy contents inside, or he'd have to smash open the vehicle himself and then take combat from the infantry inside, take hits in return. But this overcomes that. So I think for just a few extra points, the twin thermal cannon knight on a standard knight chassis, so not on the Rampager chassis, is just such a bargain unit. And then finally, I've got the combo platter. Now, this guy just brings a bit of everything. I had the points to just take a rapid-fire battle cannon and a extra Gatling cannon. I don't actually own a fourth Gatling cannon. Otherwise, I would have taken, moved points around a little bit and taken double Gatling cannon on this guy. But I couldn't, and it's always nice to have that rapid-fire battle cannon. I know they're not great, and I certainly don't prefer them. They're not my first weapon of choice, especially on my Imperial Knights. But they are good. They do sling out that strength 8, AP -2, D3 damage. It is nasty to sling that stuff out. So, it's a reliable weapon, or semi-reliable weapon that when it comes off, it feels painful. I know from taking battle cannon shots for years and years and years against guard. I hate it when my opponents roll on those battle cannon dice because it fills you with dread. You can get lucky, and you've got this sort of glimmer of hope that, please fuck up the shots. But if they don't fuck up the shots, and you've got those wounds on you, it's AP -2, which is just enough to really fuck you over. And then you fail a few of those AP -2s, and it's multi-damage, and it just kills you. And units, especially units of infantry, elite infantry, disappear. So it's nice to have. It's got that Gatling cannon, and that overcomes the risk. This makes this guy reliable in every shooting phase, because if he fucks up with the battle cannon, he's still got the Gatling cannon with a reliable 12 shots. So, all in all, that's the Iconoclast list. They've got 6 CP to play with. They've got some really nasty units that hopefully tie in beautifully together, all work and are all synchronized. So, this is my first, I fiddled around and I've written sort of 3 lists before I got to this point. I sort of distilled it. So the final thing I'll say about this list, which I actually forgot to mention, is the Warlord trait, which is Warp Haunted Hull. This allows one knight to deny 1 psychic power per psychic phase, and it also allows him to ignore psychic mortal wounds on a 5-up. So if he's up in the enemy face, the opposition face, and some psychics start trying to smite him, hopefully he can deny 1 smite and then ignore maybe one of the mortal wounds if they get loads of mortal wounds through. Hopefully can ignore one of them on a 5-up. So really nice. And I was thinking I'll either take this on my Daka Knight because he's going to be in their face if I take the Vow of Carnage and kicking stuff apart and that kind of thing. Or I'd probably take it actually on the Twin Fusion, because I think my opponent's priorities will be to kill my Tyrant Valiant and to kill my Daka Knight, which means although that Twin Fusion guy is running around wrecking stuff, my opponent will be more scared of killing the Daka guy and the Valiant, which means that my Twin Fusion guy can hopefully smite a vehicle that he's trying to crack open. So let's say, as I mentioned before, I was trying to crack open a transport. I could first of all smite it, hopefully do a couple of wounds, and that means I'm that much closer to cracking open the vehicle with my fusion weapons. So if I roll really shit, I should hopefully still crack open that vehicle. Or, say there's a heavier tank nearby and a unit of infantry in the open, or a couple of tanks nearby, I can fusion one and then charge the other unit. And I've got that smite, which just lets me get that first couple of wounds on the unit that I think, is most viable. And because I've got a 12-inch move, I can run and position myself quite easily to get that smite off effectively. So, all in all, again, the Iconoclast list looking really strong. And I'll probably take the Twin Fusion guy with the Warp Haunted Hull. So he's just some super cool, crazy mental guy, just filled with psychic energy, pouring psychic energy out of those thermal cannons. They're like psychic cannons, and smiting stuff and denying psychic powers. Just let me know what you think about that in the comments below. I'm really interested to see what people have to say about these lists. I think this list looks really strong. I actually think potentially the next list, the Infernal Household, probably looks better. I know a lot of people are split about which is better. As I've gone through this list with you guys, and as I've written this list and, written it down to remind myself before I started the video, this started to seem stronger again when I was writing the other list, the Infernal list. After I'd finished writing this list, I felt the Infernal list was strong. So every time I look at each list, I think it's the stronger list, and I think there's benefits, pros and cons to either. So we'll just have to see. And I'm looking forward to getting some battle reports down with these, and I'll be releasing some battle reports with these lists very soon. So put your comments below, give me some last minute advice. Let me know what changes you think I should put in so I can have a think about those. And now I will get on to my Infernal household list. So with the Infernal list, the first thing you need to understand is the Infernal household demonic surge. And what this allows you to do is essentially get one of 3 abilities a turn in exchange for a certain amount of mortal wounds. Now you can roll for a random ability on a D3, and they're all very good. So there's a good chance that sometimes you'll just do that because you would be happy with whatever you got, and that gives you 1 automatic mortal wound. Or you can take D3 mortal wounds, which is pretty risky. And if you're doing this all the time, you'll chew through your own knights. Their holes will be slowly eaten away by the chaos energies within them, which I think is pretty cool. But then you can select the power, which I think I'll be doing with a couple of my knights quite frequently. So as you can see, so the first power is that on a 1 to 2 you get +2 movement and +1 to advance and charge rolls, which means potentially you can get some first turn charges off with this guy. If you can move a normal knight 14 inches, let's say, and then you get +1 to your charge, that's pretty useful, but it's not amazing. You've then got the demonic fortitude, which gives you +1 toughness, which means if loads of people are taking, if you're facing off against a lot of last cannons or something like that, you can make yourself strength 9, so they're only wounding toughness 9, so they're only wounding you on 4s. If you're facing off against Eldar and they've got loads of dark lances or bright lances and that kind of thing, and I know a lot of destroyers and star cannons are more popular, but if that were the case, then they'd be wounding you on 5s instead of 4s because you'd be toughness 9 and they'd be strength 8. And the same for melters, multi-melters, that kind of thing. If you're facing off against other knights and they've got lots of thermal cannons, this again would be useful because thermal cannons are actually strength 9. So again, they'd be wounding you on 4s, not 3s. So very useful. Very, very useful, especially with those high damage weapons often being low shot output. They don't put out many shots. Then if you are dropping them down a bracket to wound you, that's going to make a big difference. That's going to cut the amount of the small amount of high strength firepower down by a significant amount. Then the final one is the demonic power, which is +1 to a chosen ranged weapon. So you only get to pick one, but it's +1 to its strength and damage. And this is just going to be great. And this is the reason why I've taken the loadouts that I have on this list, because I can see myself using this quite a lot. Now, let's get straight into the list. So first of all, it's essentially the same units, but with the loadout switched around a little bit. And the units will operate in a slightly, not necessarily different way, but there will be some differences simply because of the unique stratagems and relics available to the Infernals. But it looks really fun and really dangerous in its own right. So first of all, we'll look at the Tyrant again. Now, with this guy, if I choose the demonic power, that gives me +1 strength and +1 damage. That is going to be insane. Because think about this, you're not going to need it on your harpoon, but he's got that conflagration cannon, 3d6 auto hits. Now it's normally strength 7 damage 2, but this ability will put that conflagration cannon up to strength 8, damage 3, 3d6 auto hits. You essentially have an auto hitting Thunderhammer launcher strapped to his arm. It is going to be incredibly brutal. So you just run up to a unit, you roll D3 mortal wounds on yourself. Hopefully you only get a couple at the most, and then you just unleash a storm of, on average, 10 Thunderhammer hits, auto hitting straight onto the opponent, because it's going to be 3d6, which is an average 10 damage, automatically hitting. If that's a Space Marine unit, you're wounding on 2s, and it's 3 damage each. It's just going to be incredible, even against bikes, other knights, just all of the really nasty stuff that you want to delete as quick as possible and get out of the way because they're a threat to your knights. All the stuff that can really fuck you up, this weapon will fuck them up. So it's definitely worth taking a couple of mortal wounds early on and just thunderhammering something to death with this thunderhammer launcher, as I'm referring to it as. Now, I've also taken this guy with a relic, and it'll be the Rune of Nak-Tana again. So that gives him all the abilities that I've already described. So you don't want to charge him, and especially if he's got this thunderhammer launcher and he's got the 5-up invuln in close combat, he's really effective. And if an enemy knight charges him, he's going to hit him with that conflagration cannon, strip off a ton of wounds, and then have a 5-up in close combat, which means hopefully he shrugs off a couple of their wounds, and then he can just stomp them back. But this guy will have less damage output in close combat, just simply because he's not Iconoclast. So he's only got 4 attacks. He's only hit on 4s, I believe. So it's 12 stomps hitting on 4s. Still high damage, still AP -2, and still high strength. So it's still good, but it's not just insane like the Iconoclast household in close combat. Now, the next unit, or the next thing that I've done is I've also taken a blasphemous engine. So the next unit I've taken, is the Daka Knight. Now he's got the blasphemous engine, which is the unique relic for the Infernals. Now this allows you to effectively be Hawkshroud, and this counts wounds as double. Now I was really tempted to take this on my Tyrant, because obviously I often play Hawkshroud. I just like Hawkshroud. I like that double wound capability. I know it's not the most popular, but I like it. And this gives you that ability, and it is really strong. It just means that my Daka Knight is always going to be having a good chance of hitting, because you have to strip him down to about 6 wounds, because 6 counts as 12, and that's half of his. That would take him down 1 bracket. So you have to take him down from 24 to 6 wounds. You have to do 18 wounds to my Daka Knight for him to start hitting on 4s, which is really, really effective. This means he's just going to be doing all the Daka all the time, which is what you want with this guy. And obviously, if you are shooting at, let's say, a Predator or a Predator Chassis, or a Chimera or something that's toughness 7, you can spend the command point. You can roll D3 mortal wounds on yourself to up one of your Gatling cannons to an extra damage and an extra strength. So it becomes strength 7, damage 3, and it is going to just absolutely churn through one vehicle, and then you've still got another Gatling cannon spare, ready to shoot at something else. Or if you're shooting at a tougher vehicle, or you just really need to make sure that vehicle dies, you've got the power to do that. So that is my Daka guy. He works he's not going to be ranking up and just racking up the extra attacks by trying to massacre low stuff in close combat, get those 10 kills, because he can't do that, because that's the Iconoclast vow that he would take. And he cannot, he doesn't have the reroll 1s that he could take against vehicles if he went Beast Slayer like he would in Iconoclast. But in many ways, I think this guy is more reliable against vehicles, because that extra damage per wound that goes through, especially on just standard vehicles that don't necessarily have an invuln save, or against vehicles that do have, let's say, a 5-up invuln save, like an Eldar Skimmer or Flyer, or let's say a Venom, because Venom Span's really popular at the moment. This guy can shoot at 2 Venoms, and a Gatling cannon will, even though it's -1 to hit, this guy, you won't be able to trim him down because he's got that blasphemous engine, so he counts wounds as doubles. So most of the time, he'll be hitting on 4s, so he'll probably get 6 hits through. He'll probably get 4 wounds through. And then because he's got that extra damage, even though they'll probably save 1 or 2 of those, you'll still get 6. If you get 2 wounds through, that's 6 wounds. That's enough to kill a Venom. So this guy's going to reliably plow through 2 Venoms a turn. So it's really, really good in the meta. And Dark Eldar, they like to plink stuff down. If you're facing against Venom Span, they're going to try and plink stuff down. One of their most, they rely on taking you down a damage bracket in 1 round, and then hopefully getting you in the next round. It's sort of death from 1,000 cuts. But this guy will keep fighting. He'll shrug off those wounds, because as he drops down to 12 wounds, that doesn't matter. He doesn't drop down a bracket because he always counts as double. So really, really effective against sort of Venom spam. Really effective against elite units. Really effective against just anything you can think of that's currently nasty in the meta. It's sort of difficult to choose. Do you go with a single Daka guy and a single rifleman who's got double repeater battle cannon, or do you go for double combo platter with 2 guys dual wielding? Now I've settled finally on having 2 combo platters in this list, but I can just as easily take 1 rifleman and 1 with dual Gatling cannons, which, as I've already said, would be really powerful because you'll be able to sort of shoot down 2 units a turn, shoot down 2 skimmers a turn, but they can both do that. So it doesn't, you may as well have 1 on each. Because what that means is, if they take down 1 of your knights, you still have a load of flexibility with that demonic power ritual with the demonic surge that you can take, because each knight has the ability to add +1 strength and damage to either the rapid fire battle cannon or the Gatling cannon. So one of those knights is just going to, or both of those knights can go, right, I'm facing Wave Serpent, not Wave Serpent Span, I'm facing Venom Span, so I'll boost my Gatling cannon twice. Or I'm facing against another knight or something like that, or maybe not a knight because they get invuln save, so rapid fire battle cannons aren't great against other knights who would use probably Gatling cannon anyway, or just not do anything and just save yourself the mortal wounds and just dagger away with your normal weaponry unupgraded. Because the thing with shooting against a knight is that just +1 strength takes you up to strength 9, and although that it just basically takes you from probably on average 2 wounds going through to about 2.5 wounds going through, which means you'll probably fail 1 of those invuns. It just means you'll probably do the same amount of, you'll do 1 more damage, and you'll have rolled D3 mortal wounds on yourself, so you'll probably do 1 extra wound to him. Just with the extra damage on the battle cannon, you won't get any extra wounds through, but you will take D3, you could potentially take 3 mortal wounds yourself. At minimum, it'll be a wound for a wound, so unless you really need to finish off that knight, I wouldn't do it. But against things like Lehman Russes, you can then get an extra couple of wounds through, which means you'll probably do an extra, on average, D3 +1, an extra 3 wounds to a Lehman Russ or toughness 8 tank if you ramp that rapid fire battle cannon up to strength 9. I sort of just quickly jotted down the maths before I did this video. So what that means is that you'll probably take 2 mortal wounds potentially, but you'll do potentially 4 extra wounds to him, and on average 3 extra wounds on top, so to the Lehman Russ. So it's not amazing, but it is good. But the Gatling cannon, again, you can really ramp up that Gatling cannon. So most of the time you'll buff the Gatling cannon, but on occasion you'll want to buff the rapid fire battle cannon. So I'm not sure how effective having the dual wielding is. I'm not sure if it's the best route to go down, or if to take an extra Gatling cannon, because obviously I've dropped a Gatling cannon in this list to have the 2 dual wielders, mainly because I think it looks cool. But I ummed and ahed whether to take a Gatling cannon guy, dual wielding Gatling cannon, and a rifleman. So let me know in the comment section how you would adjust this list. And then finally, I have my knight with the double thermal lance. Now this guy, I've gone for the Tzeentchian Pyro Throne as a relic, so I've paid for an extra 2 relics. I've spent 3 command points on extra relics, and I'm also giving him the Warp Haunted Hull Warlord trait. So what this means is this guy can deny 2 psychic powers a turn, because the Warp Haunted Hull lets him deny 1, and Tzeentchian Pyro Throne effectively turns him into a level 1 Psyker. So he can do 1 spell, which is Smite, which is always nice. Nice to get your revenge. You've been taking smites with your knights for years, and now you can smite back. And also you've got 2 denies now because of the combination of both. Now you could spread it around and give 2 knights the ability to deny 1 psychic power each, which may be more flexible. But I really just like the idea of this dual thermal lance guy. He's not got any fuel in his thermal cannons. They ran out, the fuel ran out, the Promethean ran out centuries ago. But he's just got filled with Tzeentchian flame. And he pours Tzeentchian flame out of these 2 thermal cannons. And he's just filled with psychic energy. And he's just smiting, occasionally like a blast of psychic energy just spills out as he overflows with psychic energy. And, it creates this bubble where you can't cast spells because you can... and it's really hard to smite him in return because he's got these 2 denies. So I really like the idea of this dual wielding thermal psyker knight. I think he's super, super cool. And then so that's cost me 3 command points to take triple relics. You get 1 relic for free and then 2 extra relics. So the 2 units that I'm really excited about in this list are the Tyrant with that Thunderhammer launcher and my Tzeentchian Pyro Thermal Lance crazy knight who's going to run around smiting stuff, lancing open stuff, and kicking stuff to death. So, and just being super cool on the battlefield. Really like my head fluff for that guy. So, those are my 2 lists. I'd really appreciate your feedback. I'd really appreciate your input. Let me know what you think. Let me know what little twists or distillations I should do to this list to really squeeze the most battle capacity out, because I'm going to be filming a couple of battle reports. I'm going on holiday tomorrow for a week, but then as soon as I'm back, I've got a couple of battle reports booked in with my mates. I'm going to be filming some battle reports, so you let me know in the meantime what you think about these lists and how I should adjust them. So, once again, I am a loyal servant of our glorious Emperor, and maybe a slightly radicalized loyal servant of our glorious Emperor, but I remain the Schola Progenium. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.